Miami Dolphins beat the Buffalo Bills, and boy, the great news for Miami just continues to roll in. We got a lot of updates before the Bills-Dolphins game on what went down around the trade deadline in terms of Miami receiving interest on Devon Achane and Jaylen Waddle. Obviously, Miami ultimately kept those two players, and they had a huge, big-time performances in the win against the Bills today. And it just really encaptures why we have said on the channel, you do not trade Jaylen Waddle, you do not trade Devon Achane. Well, let's start with this report. Literally at the crack ass of dawn on Sunday morning, Pelissero said that the Bills were the highest bidder for Dolphins wide receiver Jaylen Waddle, and also tried to trade for Jets defensive line Quinnen Williams. Obviously, Williams went to Dallas. Obviously, Miami kept Waddle, and he torched Buffalo for 5 catches, 84 yards, and a score. But, could you imagine trading Jaylen Waddle to the Bills? I actually think I would rather no longer watch the sport of football than that really come to fruition. And Mike Garafolo added in on the report saying that Miami was looking for a first-round pick and more from teams for Jaylen Waddle. And obviously, if they were going to even think about trading him to a division rival like the Buffalo Bills, it would have been even more. So Buffalo would have had to probably send 2 first-round picks for Jaylen Waddle for Miami to even consider that. Obviously, that didn't happen, and it wasn't accepted either way. And we'll share the report that the offer was from Buffalo here in a second. But this is why you subscribe, because we were live for the game on Sunday. We had a party. We had a blast. Shout out John Rivero and CJ Gutierrez. And we're also bringing you the news and rumors that you need to know on a daily basis as well. But Tom Pelissero reported on the NFL Network Game Day show that the offer the Bills ultimately sent to the Miami Dolphins for Jaylen Waddle was a 2027 first-round pick and a 2026 third-rounder. So Miami would have had then 4 third-round picks in this year's draft, and they would have had a second first-round pick in 2027. And I saw many people on Twitter say, oh my God, the Dolphins front office is so dumb for turning this down. Why did they turn down a 2027 first-rounder when that draft class looks to be absolutely stacked at wide receiver with Jeremiah Smith, with Ryan Williams, with some other guys, and then you also factor in the quarterbacks that will be there. But I'm here to tell you, this was absolutely the right decision. I got to be honest, I said that maybe you would think about trading Waddle to the Bills if they offer 2 first-round picks. I'll be honest, trading him to Buffalo or in division would have been a catastrophic mistake. So holding on to Waddle is absolutely the right decision in this standpoint. I'll say it. If the Dolphins traded Jaylen Waddle to, let's say let me pick a random team that traded for a wide receiver. I don't know, the 49ers. And you trade him to the 49ers for a first and a third. All right, I think that would be absolutely justifiable to take a first and a third back for Waddle to the San Francisco 49ers. But in division, your rival, the Bills, absolutely not. And imagine if we had to watch Waddle across the sideline today and those shitty blue and red uniforms go for a touchdown and 80 yards against us. I think that would have been the end of my time. I'll just leave it at that. But you let me know your thoughts. Should the Dolphins have accepted the 2027 first rounder and a third in this year's draft from the Bills for Waddle? Type Y for yes or N for no. I obviously laid it out there, firmly against it. And I would not trade good players inside your division. You just simply should not do that. And I would be open to trading inside division on minor trades. If the Dolphins honestly traded Rasul Douglas to the Bills for a 6th round pick, I wouldn't have given one piece of shit. But if you trade a young, franchise, elite ball player inside the division, that is brain dead stuff. You do not do that. You can trade 1-year veterans. You do not trade young players that are dominating forces. I don't have the numbers fully pulled up in front of me, but if you look at Jaylen Waddle's numbers this year without Tyreek Hill, they are disgustingly good. Think about the games that Jaylen Waddle has played since Tyreek Hill went out for the year. Against the Panthers, against the Chargers, the Browns, the Bills, and who did we play last week? The Ravens. And against the Panthers, 100 and a touchdown. Against the Chargers, more than 60 yards and a score. The Browns was a monsoon, so it's whatever. But 84 yards and a touchdown today against the Ravens. Had a really good performance. Like, Jaylen Waddle has looked like, no joke, a top 12 wide receiver in the NFL without Tyreek Hill this year. And you go back to his rookie year where he had over 1,000 yards, 100 receptions, and 5 scores. Like, this guy is just an absolute superstar. You do not trade him. You do not trade him in division. It was absolutely the right decision by the Miami Dolphins to hold on to him. And Dolphins fans should be thanking the lucky heavens Champ Kelly and Mike McDaniel had that same line of belief, because it would have been a train wreck to trade him inside the division. But the Miami Dolphins also reportedly received interest on running back Devon Achane. Apparently, Miami wanted a second-round pick and more in return for the running back. Obviously, Achane is one of Miami's more dynamic players. And once again, this was the right decision to not trade him for anything less than a second-round pick and more. We'll have more on that here in a second. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Hard-hitting football action continues on. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks, just pick more or less at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks offers injury reboot, so if one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. My entry for this game in Week 10 against the Bills was not very good. More than on Achane, yes. Well, the other two, not so much. So I missed. But download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. I mean, the smart decision by Miami not trading Achane. Like, I said it in a couple videos leading up to the deadline that if you were offered a first-round pick, you should probably trade him, because you trade values, hopefully, at their highest value and don't wait for them to be washed or really on a decline. And if you think about Achane, he's 24. He has 1 year left on his contract. But that also makes him a very valuable asset, because you look at what Devon Achane did to the Buffalo Bills today. He's been doing this all year to opponents. He is a top 5 running back in football, and there aren't many teams in running backs that have the dual threat ability that Achane has. 225 combined yards today. Like, the top 5 running backs in football, in my opinion, are in no order: Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey. And honestly, I can't even tell you who the 5th is. But I know those are the top 4. You could have your debates elsewhere, whether it's Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams. I don't care. I don't really care to have a conversation about it. But Achane is without a question there. And I looked at his numbers at age 24 in comparison to Christian McCaffrey at age 26. Because McCaffrey was traded from Carolina to San Francisco for a second-round pick, like 2 or 3 day 3 picks. And Achane, if he got traded, would be 2 years younger than McCaffrey, just as productive in his first 3 seasons compared to McCaffrey's first 3 seasons. So yes, if you're Miami, you should have held firm on that price point, where it's either a first-round pick or it's a second-round pick and a third and a fourth. Like this is what McCaffrey went for in that Carolina trade. Like, if Miami was offered that for Achane, yeah, they should have probably traded him, because you don't need that good of a running back with where Miami is in their rebuild. But you should also want to hold on to some of these young offensive superstars to help restart this next build, right? You need pillars to build this new look roster that is going to be coming. And I think the pillars are, without a question, at least offensively, Devon Achane, Jaylen Waddle, and Patrick Paul, your left tackle. And you build around those guys. So I think it was the right decision by Miami to ultimately hold on to these guys. And I think it's great news for Dolphins fans that they had the right train of thoughts here, where, yeah, we'll listen, but unless you send us a ridiculous offer, we're not going to accept it. And can I be honest here, folks? I feel like we may have turned a corner a little bit here. And maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid because I hate the Bills more than any NFL team there is, and destroying them and beating them for the first time since September of 2022, when it was the first time Mike McDaniel coached against the Bills. Like, this felt so good. And like, it just felt like a new era almost. And I know it's the same players that were out there, but Chris Greer's gone, and Miami comes out and blows out their division rival who they haven't beaten in 3 years. Like, it just feels like that's not a coincidence, right? And with these good decisions, do I think the Dolphins should have still traded Minkah Fitzpatrick at the deadline? Absolutely, because I do not think he's going to be here with Miami next season. And I think if, assuming that ends up becoming correct, you should have dealt him for a third or fourth round pick if that was on the table this past week. But you do not trade your young players. And because I do actually believe that Miami, if Champ Kelly wanted to get the full-time GM job, I think he would have had to make some splash moves that ultimately paid out in the long run. And a splash move would have been trading a Devon Achane, would have been trading a Jaylen Waddle. That didn't happen. Miami made the right smart decisions to keep your young guys, and you saw how much they impacted winning today. I mean, Devon Achane and Jaylen Waddle themselves totaled over 300 yards. Think about that. Achane had 225 scrimmage yards. Waddle added another 84. They combined for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yes, they are leaders of this franchise going forward. And you could only hope that the right decisions are made going forward in the draft and free agency on the trade market. Because I got to be honest, like, I'm not there yet. This guy might be doing something for me right now. Not there yet. But the way that this team has continued to fight for him and play hard and good makes me feel like I should still think that he could be a coach in the NFL. Makes me. Do I think it now? No. But I could. I could. And we'll see how the season progresses. And we'll be here every step of the way. So hit that sub button and lock us in for daily Dolphins content. See you tomorrow with more videos, including a live show. Go Fins.